Unveil your shadow. The Jungian secret to end your inner pain. Have you ever wondered why you keep repeating the same mistakes, even after swearing you'd never make them again? Or why certain people trigger such intense anger in you that even you don't understand? Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychoanalysts in history, discovered that there's a part of us that remains hidden, controlling our lives without us realizing it. He called this the shadow. And today, I'll reveal how confronting this dark part of ourselves can be the most powerful path to ending the suffering you inflict upon yourself. Most people spend their entire lives trying to be better, happier, more fulfilled, but continue stumbling over the same painful patterns. It's not for lack of effort. According to Stanford University research, 92% of personal change resolutions fail precisely because we try to modify only what's on the surface of our consciousness. What Jung discovered, later confirmed by decades of neuroscience research, is that approximately 95% of our behavior is guided by the unconscious. These are like programs running in the background, determining our reactions, fears, and desires, without us having any conscious control over them. Imagine this: that disproportionate irritation you feel when someone makes a seemingly harmless comment, or that attraction to people who end up hurting you in the same way, repeatedly. It's not coincidence. It's your shadow operating in the shadows of your mind. The shadow isn't inherently bad, explains Dr. Laura Harris, a Jungian psychologist from Columbia University. It's simply everything that was repressed during our development because it wasn't accepted by family or society. Your fear, your anger, your desires, everything you learned to hide from yourself. But here's the fascinating paradox that changed my view on psychological suffering. The more we deny these shadowy parts, the more power they gain over us. It's like trying to hold a ball underwater. The more force you use to keep it submerged, the more energy it accumulates to violently emerge when you're distracted. Psychiatrist Dr. James Hollis, in his book The Inner Shadow, documented hundreds of cases where patients suffering from chronic depression experienced significant relief after beginning to consciously work with their shadows. It's not the content of the shadow that causes suffering, he writes, but rather the energy we spend trying to keep it hidden. Consider this scenario: you grew up in a family where expressing anger was forbidden. Good boys don't yell. Well-mannered girls don't show anger. What happened to all that natural anger you felt as a child? It didn't disappear. It was pushed into the depths of your unconscious, becoming part of your shadow. Today, as an adult, you might pride yourself on being someone who never gets angry, but internally you feel constant anxiety or have disproportionate outbursts of anger over small incidents, or even develop physical problems related to stress. Your shadow has found ways to express itself because emotional energy doesn't disappear, it only transforms. A study conducted by the Jung Institute of Zurich followed 340 individuals for 5 years and discovered that those who actively practiced shadow integration work reported a 68% reduction in anxiety symptoms and a 72% improvement in the quality of intimate relationships. But let's be honest, confronting your shadow isn't easy. It's uncomfortable to look at parts of yourself that you've spent years, perhaps decades, trying to deny. As Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, author of the classic Women Who Run with the Wolves, says, shadow work is like turning on a light in a basement abandoned for years. You'll find things you'd rather not see. However, it's precisely in this confrontation that liberation resides. Jung called this process individuation, the path to truly becoming who you are, integrating all the fragmented parts of yourself into a coherent whole. However, it's precisely in this confrontation that liberation resides. Jung called this process individuation, the path to truly becoming who you are, integrating all the fragmented parts of yourself into a coherent whole. Imagine your life as an incomplete puzzle. You have various pieces scattered about, your qualities that you publicly embrace, your skills that you celebrate, your virtues that you show to the world. But what about the other pieces? Those you've hidden under the rug, pushed under the sofa, or even thrown away. Your unacceptable anger, your shameful vulnerability, your inappropriate desires, your selfish needs. Jung realized that true psychological wholeness only happens when we gather all these scattered pieces. Individuation isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming whole. It's as if you've spent your entire life trying to be only half of yourself, and then discovered you can breathe with both lungs, see with both eyes, walk with both legs. Perhaps you know that feeling of pretending, even when everyone compliments you. That quiet discomfort of playing a role, even while being successful at it. That's the price of living fragmented. Individuation is the profound relief of finally being able to say, "This is me, all of me. No masks, no characters, just the complete and imperfect truth of my being." A client of mine, Sophia, compared this moment to finally being able to return home after a long journey. "I spent 35 years trying to be who my parents, my bosses, and even my friends expected me to be. When I finally embraced my shadow, my assertiveness they called aggressiveness, my sensitivity they called weakness. It was as if the walls of an invisible prison collapsed. I finally recognized myself. Individuation is like allowing all the instruments of your internal orchestra to play together, instead of silencing some to highlight others. Is it chaotic at first? Yes. Out of tune sometimes, certainly, but eventually a much richer, much more authentic and, surprisingly, much more harmonious symphony emerges than that limited melody you allowed yourself to play before. A powerful technique to begin this work is what Jungian psychologists call active dialogue with the shadow. Emma, a 32-year-old patient who suffered from recurring panic attacks, discovered through this dialogue that her shadow contained a deep anger she never allowed herself to feel toward her negligent parents. By giving voice to this anger in a safe therapeutic environment, her panic symptoms decreased dramatically in just 8 weeks. Modern neuroscience confirms what Jung intuited. When we integrate aspects of the shadow into consciousness, we literally reconfigure our neural circuits. A neuroimaging study from the University of California showed that patients engaged in shadow integration work exhibited greater connectivity between the limbic system, emotional center, and the prefrontal cortex, conscious decision center. Another surprising discovery: the qualities we most admire in others are often aspects of our own shadow. Jung called this positive projection. That courage you so admire in your friend, that creativity you envy in your colleague. These are parts of you waiting to be recognized and integrated. Dr. Robert Johnson, a renowned Jungian analyst, observes that the shadow contains not only our repressed negative aspects, but also our unrefined gold, talents, gifts, and potentials that were buried along with the parts we learned to reject. Let's be practical. How do you begin this shadow integration work? A powerful first step is to pay attention to your intense emotional reactions. When you feel disproportionate irritation, inexplicable attraction, or immediate aversion to someone, stop and ask, what is this showing me about myself? An exercise I recommend to my clients is the shadow journal. For 2 weeks, note situations where you felt intense emotions that seemed disproportionate. Then, for each situation, ask, what part of me was being activated here? What does this reaction tell me about aspects of myself that I have difficulty accepting? Psychologist Dr. Mark Epstein combines mindfulness techniques with Jungian psychology to help his patients observe the shadow without judgment. It's like watching a horror movie with the lights on, he explains. You still see the same scary scenes, but the context completely changes. As you advance in this work, something extraordinary begins to happen. Self-inflicted suffering diminishes. That internal critical voice loses strength. Self-destructive patterns in relationships begin to dissolve. As Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. If you felt a deep connection with what I shared today, this is just the beginning of the journey. Leave in the comments which part of your shadow you're most curious to explore, and subscribe to the channel for more content on depth psychology and self-discovery. Hit the notification bell to be notified when we release our next video in the Psychology of the Depths series, where we'll explore practical techniques to safely dialogue with your shadow in a transformative way. If this video touched something deep in you, share it with someone who is also seeking true self-knowledge. And remember, true liberation begins when you have the courage to look at what is hidden.